Hello and welcome, everyone, to another session from Will to Play. I'm Will Harris, your host. Today, in this session, in this hour-long training, we are doing Revit management training. This has been termed, in the case of this class, the BIM Manager Survival Skills. What we're learning over this entire class, right, since this is the first one, we're going to have to do a little keynotes in here. What we're learning over the entire class is basically where all the picks, the clicks, the things that you can standardize in Revit, the things that you need to standardize, the things that you don't need to standardize in Revit. How do you take what existed in our CAD world back in the Stone Age days? How do we take what existed in our CAD world that we called our CAD standards and translate them into Revit standards? So, you know, as a little motto on the classes, you know, Revit your CAD standards kind of thing. That's the idea here. Given that everybody is also in one of the other classes, the website, of course, is where you're going to grab all your resources from. The resources will be up there as soon as the session is over, ready for you to use and watch and archive. So, session 1 is the Revit user manual. Okay, the concept behind starting here, right? Isn't this the end idea? Is that we want to, at the very end, we're going to have this Revit user manual for your actual drafters. So why am I talking about it now? Well, I'm talking about it now because I need you to see where our end process is, right? This is going to give you all the picks and clicks for you as a Revit manager, but that's all great. That's all fine, but the problem here is you know the software, you know your standards, you've built all these. So we also need to have a user manual, and that's why we're starting off here. We're going to tell you what all is going to be included in a user manual for Revit, and then go back and over the next 15 sessions, kind of dial in all of the bits and pieces that you're not sure. So that's the idea about this Revit user manual. Any questions about that? Why, we're starting at the end, basically. We're clear on this? I'm just unmuting everybody. We're starting at the end.
Yeah,
so we have,
sounds good.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, let's get started because this is going to be a long session. It says there's only a few topics here, but each of these topics have a significant, significant number of subtopics. Okay. We will move through these. If you have questions, just raise your hand. If not, I'm trying to do a data dump here. This is what I'm going to consider a data dump into your head. We are going to go through all the vocabulary. I'm going to use all these terms. If I lose you, that's when you go, Will, you've lost me. Stop, come back. If you've heard these terms before, if you've heard these concepts before, that's fine. Again, the idea here is that I'm giving you the 30,000-foot overview of the entire class. And so each of these topics will be hit again. So have faith that this is just round 1 of this, well, 16-round boxing match that we're going to have with your Revit standards over the next, 16 sessions. So here's our topics. Let's get started. So introduction to a CAD standards. Well, here's the concept. Who, what, when, where, why, the big thing. This session is, again, to give you a book that's going to end up in your end user's hand. So who is this book written for? How are you going to write this book? Right, that's what you kind of need to think about over the next session, sessions. What is the end goal here? The what here is very much tied to the why. The what is a book, and the why is because you don't have time in your life to constantly train everybody back on Revit, constantly get your people to learn the standards. You don't have time to enforce them, but if you don't enforce them, well, we all know what happens there, right? Our projects blow up in our face. The win of this question is, well, you have all of these weeks to go through, and basically, if you stay on top of this and act as though this class is a bit of your daily practice, your weekly homework is to actually take the the concepts that we address in each session and then apply them to your own documentation. So you should be taking some serious notes. And I will give you, by the way, all of these outlines that will be there. They will be accessible to you. I just didn't get this one up beforehand, but as you can see now, since you're watching the recording, right, this is not the live. Wait, no, this is the live one. I'm so confused. Anyway, that's the idea. We'll give you all the content, and you will have everything ready for your book. So here's what my thought is on this idea, is if they don't understand what your position is, and they don't understand your value, your reasons, then they're not going to work in your environment, right? And who is the they I'm talking about? I'm talking about our end user. So when you are addressing this book, when you're addressing a Revit user manual or a standards manual or any sort of manual, the thought that I always have is if I don't understand something, I'm not going to follow it. Well, maybe I don't understand the entire overall process, and so let me expound on that. If I can't see why following that standard or that practice or that concept, if I can't see why following that will save me time and headache, I will not follow that because I have to change to do that. Everybody clear on what I just said? I'm just going to assume that yes, you are. You must make your users see the value in their own life before they will ever follow your own standards. So when you are writing content, when you are writing documentation, when you are talking to your user, it is not a stick and a carrot. It is here is how the value will save you time. Here is how this will increase your efficiency. Here is how you will make more. Here's how you do more with less time. And of course, always keep KISS and passive least resistance. You know, if a standard's not being followed now, there's probably some resistance there you may want to think about. Best practices, right? When we're dealing with best practices, here are some of the things that we need to understand that are going to be different between CAD and Revit. Job numbers, project folders, and project setup. I'm going to unmute everyone. Okay. And Laura, you still have some good feedback, so I'm going to have to mute you. Job number, project folders, and project setups. Yes, all of these are the same between CAD and Revit. However, they are completely, they make a big difference, right? Because, well, in a CAD environment, what is our network setup? You know, what's our network location? How do we have our projects laid out in our Windows environment? And it's going to change significantly over Revit. Why is that? Anybody want to expound? Why is it going to change in Revit? No one. Well, within Revit, within Revit, you cannot, your project name and number is controlled by the project, and that project is a single file. So instead of having multiple folders in a project in a Revit situation, you have a setup where we see something that's going to be similar to this. So you can see my screen here. I've jumped over to a BIM wiki site because this is the easiest way to do it instead of having to show you a whole folder structure. And this will actually, you can look at it or modify it however you want. So within Revit, we want a folder structure that's going to be a little different, right? We're going to have company standards. We're going to have our Revit details, but further down we need to look at our actual projects folder, and that's what I'm talking about right now. Right? Not only do you need your existing project structure somewhere, you're going to have to create a new project structure for your Revit project. Why? Because now we're dealing with a central file. We're dealing with project-specific content. We're dealing with our archives differently. Everything changes. And again, I'm just showing you the overview here of this process. We will continue to move forward at this point back into the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So some of the things that we're going to have to deal with over the course of the next 16 weeks is the key points are going to be where is your standard families, how are your system families saved, what's happening with your project, what your live project, your archive project, and the project that